Okay. Direwolf is a real thing. Holy fuck. Most famous prehistoric carnivores, yet I don't know about them. The saber-toothed cat. Direwolf lived in the Americas during the late Pleistocene. How big were these guys? Because one of the things I'm interested in early in the game, and one of the reasons that grazing animal herds will be important, is all of the stuff that wants to hunt them and how they end up intersecting with either hunter-gatherers or settled peoples. Because even if you end up playing as like a feral group of large game hunters, like the competitors are going to be the other predators. So presumably you'll be encountering them and interacting with them quite a bit. How big is this guy? Taxonomy. Direwolf. How big? Okay, so they were bigger, but not that much bigger. Maybe an extra 1/3 larger. Still pretty significant, though. Right. It's pretty cool. I've never heard of direwolves. I mean, obviously saber-toothed cats and stuff like that. Never heard of direwolves, which is surprising. Anyway, so we're getting to the end of our vegetation model. What I'd like to do, objective-wise, is to be able to generally replicate every single major biome. There's a few things I'm uneasy about. Like, I wonder how quickly... Since I don't have biological facilitation in the model yet, I feel like a lot of our tree growth is too punctuated. You can kind of see, so for instance, this is a Mediterranean tile. And you can see we have a pretty big time interval here, right? It was 3,000 years or something. You can see we have periods where trees, or broadleaf trees or conifers are a bit more present in a given area. But the issue is once we start replicating this over a region of 20,000 tiles, and we have both the influence of neighboring tiles. So one thing this model doesn't take into account yet is the influence of neighboring tiles and and biological facilitation of a more favorable climate. So the first point with adjacency is that a forest tile is going to be more stable to disturbance than if it has other forest tiles adjacent to it than it will if it doesn't. And so we basically need to account for those edge effects. And so what we'll see in this case is that these spikes will be stretched out in either direction when you have the stabilizing influence of neighboring tiles. But then it'll also be more difficult for a forest tile to get a foothold if it's not surrounded by other forests. So they kind of all need to rise and fall together. But then additionally, trees with their deeper roots and their greater biomass are going to be able to pull more water from the soil and put it into the atmosphere to alter the climate, which makes the climate more favorable for them. So what that'll mean is, as forests slowly rise, they'll kind of terraform the surrounding area to make it more favorable for themselves. But it also means that it's harder to get a foothold without there being a favorable climate to begin with. And so this should be kind of a longer process, but more stable long term. And we don't really have that represented here. And so we can just kind of have, you know, these gyrations that are excessive. So that's something I feel we're only going to be able to deal with once we get to that point. So I feel like we've accounted for just about every single one of our disturbance types except weather. So what we need is, so we have seasonal wildfire, seasonal stochastic wildfire, extreme cold events. We don't have extreme wind events. Theoretically, we do have. We've accounted for wind. Extreme floods, we have not. So one tricky thing in here is we really haven't accounted for wetlands yet. That may be something we just have to mess around with later. Because I don't actually have the right wetland data that we need. I've kind of inferred where they're going to be. Micro and macro parasitic infestations, not really, but not super important. Large herding animals and grasslands, we've accounted for that. So we've accounted for this. Accounted for winds, floods, macro parasites. No. This is really the one we need to worry about right now, because this is going to be what constrains forests in extreme northern climates and southern climates. Megafauna could work on uninhabited. Yeah, that'll be an interesting thing to see champion, is sort of, you know, we'll be populating herds around the world. It'll be interesting to see how civilizations gradually denude them, right? Because really what we have with pastoral lifestyles is replacing natural herding animals with domesticated herding animals over the same range. Giant sloths. There are giant armadillos too. So extreme cold events, so here's our fires. Here's the thing that I feel like, well, okay, let's just head up to turn fire on. Okay. turn you on. Really all we need here is, yeah, and giant beavers, of course. The Casteroids. So freezes are going to be way simpler than fires. Because they're not going to, it's something that's just going to be defined purely by climate conditions, right? Things get cold, stuff dies. It's pretty simple. The biggest effect that the cold is going to have is on canopy height, because and soil temperature. And so the higher you grow, the more exposed you are. The more surface area you have, and so the more exposed you are to the cold. And that's why in tundra everything is like clinging to the ground. And grasses should be more resistant to the cold than most other plant types. Oh fuck, I haven't finished organics yet. Oh, I've got to add that to the model. I totally forgot about that. Okay, well anyway, let's where did I put the defines for all of my yeah, here we go. Yeah, cold resistance. Broadleafs have terrible cold resistance. Okay. So after freezes, we need to include organics, and we also need our secondary and tertiary growth, which could change quite a bit. But once we have freezes in, we have all of the levers that we need to pull to influence the model. Organics and secondary and tertiary growth factors are all going to jack up growth rates, and so then we can sort of tune our disturbances and some of our plant growth defines to bring it back into stability. Because right now we have certain mineral nutrient deprived locations unable to do just about anything. We have, we have equatorial high rainfall areas that should be supporting rainforests. Right now are like supporting mostly conifers because there's no mineral nutrients. Actually, let's see what it looks like right now. I believe they were like crazy, ludicrously stable ecosystems because there was just no fire because there was so much reliable moisture all the time. Where was it? Boreal, temperate, tundra, monsoon forest, equatorial rainforest. Here we go. Oops. Wait, what? Did I leave something? Oops. Maybe that was the problem. Some dangling code. Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what happens. Right. So what we have right now in our rainforests over 3,000 years, canopy height's probably almost entirely governed by an equilibrium between growth, death rate of trees, and winds. And yeah, it's conifer dominated because there's only really awful mineral nutrients and no organics. And so yeah, basically rainforests are conifer dominated with some broadleaves and no disturbances. Calandial, probably not, because I just remember that I have to do organics and the secondary and tertiary growth factors. So that's gonna take a while longer, and I'm probably gonna discover a few screwy things along the way that are gonna. I doubt I'll finish it this weekend. And then I have to test other biomes. So once I get organics in, I've got to make sure that all of those late, long, old growth, like all the late succession ecosystems, like rainforests and stuff like that, I'm gonna have to balance them with organics, and I haven't even touched on that once. I have no idea what to expect. Although it's interesting, this is kind of a good sign that we got this kind of result, because if we already have broadleaves relatively competitive in a rainforest, once we start adding sort of a level of organics at an equilibrium, that's going to boost their numbers pretty substantially, I think, and it could even be that they end up dominating. So we'll see. And that, of course, is what we want. Okay, so turn freeze on. How are we going to handle freezes? The best thing I think we can do is let's just write this out. Way to handle freezes. I think what we should do is not make freezes event driven, but just part of the natural growth calculations. If cold resistance for a type of plant category is overwhelmed, cause casualties. Some casualties. Fast growers, like shrubs, should be able to withstand some casualties while also managing to grow, resulting in a net positive presence in places like tundra. A lot of tundra will technically have 100% land cover, but growth, especially when it comes to grasses, but lower soil temperature will mean that mineral nutrients are low, thus grasses will grow radically slower than in conventional grasslands. The net effect will be that grazers can survive, that relatively large herds of grazers can survive in tundra, but their gross numbers are much lower than what we see on grasslands, okay, giant herds, bison. So here's the trick, and something that's been on my mind when it comes to grazers, is how many large grazers you're going to have is going to be dependent on the per capita growth rate of your grasses. Let me see. I keep commenting this out. And so this is something I'm kind of thinking about in relative to tundras too. So let's go back to grasslands. Let me see. Let's get the average really quickly. Right, so here's a grassland with grazers. You have a few oak trees from time to time that are lone little oak trees, but this is effectively like a midgrass prairie. And what's interesting is once you knock out the grazers from this model, it should look pretty different. So let's pretend there's no grazers. Yeah, when you get rid of grazers, you end up with you end up with a mixed, basically a mixed temperate forest, which doesn't have a stable state because there's not enough water to really prevent wildfires, and so you have this kind of back and forth between soar the grassland, soar the forest. But how well the question of how many grazers you're actually going to end up having there is going to depend on the per capita growth rate of the grass itself in the given biome. That's interesting. What the fuck happened there? Probably a bunch of fires or something. Okay, let's do this. So let's get the averages. Right, so you can see. Let me get the averages, then we'll get the per capita growth rate after we plug in the right numbers. This is something it's been on my mind while I take my walks in the morning and look at the grass. So tile grass 57145, tile shrubs. I'm retuning what we should start with. Tile conifers, it's like going to be practically nothing. That's fine. Tile broadleaves, interestingly, 600. Okay. So now what we're going to want to do is we're going to look at the per capita growth figures. That's weird. Oh, wait a minute. That kind of sucks. I think what's happening is grasses are the least competitive, so they can't. When they try to grow at this point, there's no place to grow, and so their potential growth rate is not measured. Let me try something. I think I made the mistake of removing grazer damage standard. We need to inflict casualties on grasses. Oops, I removed it for some reason. So interestingly, when these large grazers move across the land and they eat up different plants, and so obviously they can't really reasonably eat or destroy large conifers or broadleaves, and in some cases even shrubs. But when they're younger, they can eat. When they eat the sapling can't make a comeback. When grass is consumed, though, there's a root structure beneath the soil that's at least as big or larger than what's on the surface. And so when there's a fire or when the grass is eaten, it's not killed, it just kind of regrows. Anyone who's cut their lawn, is familiar with that. If you accidentally chop up one of the trees that you planted, that tree isn't coming back, but the grass will. And so we don't want to overdo the casualties, but we want there to be some casualties, so to speak. So let's see what happens when we add some grass casualties here. Yeah, see, then we get some really screwy stuff, though. Why is that happening? Okay, let me show you. So vegetation prevalence over time, you see that Let me reduce our interval real quick. Hold on. Something seems off here. Let's reduce our interval to like 300. Grass is going to decline while it gets displaced by forests. Something's off. My per capita grass growth is just doesn't seem right. I mean, it may actually be growing right, but not be recorded properly. So when grazers move into an area, like, they have to inflict casualties because they need to move out. They need to have an incentive to leave, right? Whatever they eat has to be destroyed, and so then they need to move on so that there's a chance for the grasses there to regrow. Grazing damage standard, grazing canopy ceiling, grazing modifier, grazing animal intensity 500 times grazing damage standard. What's odd to me is we're doing so little damage to grass here. Why would that have such a pronounced influence on broadleaves? Oh, okay, so we actually printed this out. So for that's so few casualties right there. You can see the grazers stunting broadleaves as well, but broadleaf abundance, water per capita. The shrubs are being eaten too. Why would that make such a big difference? Okay, so we do it like this. And you can see, boom, grasses dominate, trees are virtually non-existent. That's when grasses take 0 casualties. I think something's screwy with our crowding. And then we add just a few grass casualties, a tiny fraction, and boom, trees are doing a gazillion times better. Why? Let's reel it in a little bit and see if there's some tipping point. Apparently there's some fire like wiping them out or something. Should be some data on our fires. Yeah, we had a few major fire spikes. That's odd. And our average here, we don't ever have, we rarely have 100% land cover, which is very strange. So let's do this. Let's see what our land cover is. Right, and here we have 100% land cover. So I think I know what's going on. I think the problem is our crowding may be too intense, maybe. Let's see what our average is here. Or the crowding factor may be too intense. Let's add just very few grass casualties. What's kind of odd to me is the way that forest fires are operating at the moment, because at a moment like this, we have how much biomass? Why would that necessarily cause a catastrophic fire? It's an example of our grass casualties here. Grass casualties, yeah, they're lower, as we would expect. And it's weird that we're... Yeah, gradually going up. Wouldn't we also expect fires under these circumstances too? And we're just never really getting them. So if we look here, but we are actually getting them. History of fires. And they're pretty intense. So why aren't they killing anything? Alright. Something's up with our fires. Weird. So here's an instance of fire intensity around the year 299. Water per capita is definitely low enough for a fire. Fire intensity was pretty awful. So why wasn't our grasses killed off then? It looks like the fire is our list of fire intensities here. It gets up to 5 almost. So I'm wondering why it's not killing off grasses as much. It should, Because you have 100% land cover, so fire can spread pretty quickly. Really weird. Let's see, water deficit severity. Ooh. All right, so here's our grass casualties. Did we print these? No, but maybe we should. Grass casualties. Format to a string. Grass casualties. Okay, so here's with no grazers influencing grass. And so it doesn't look like much is happening there. Grass average 58143. Once again, we have some relatively intense fires. Now let's find a fire. So here's a fire intensity of 2.6. WTF? It says it killed all of the grass. I find that highly suspicious. And yet it didn't, obviously, so... What the fuck? Do you see a massive drop in... Weird. Okay. This is all grazing stuff. Water per capita. Weird. What year is this? 294? Let's open up pop growth history and see if we can see if there was like some kind of ludicrously massive spike in grass population growth around year 2933 or interval 2933. No. In fact, we see virtually no grass growth whatsoever anywhere because it is just dominating. Something is obviously wrong here. So we printed the fire intensity, printed the year, printed water per capita, which is below the necessary threshold. We calculated grass casualties, which were complete, which it doesn't even seem like that should be true. Something is very off. fire intensity was only 2.6. Oh no, fire resistance wasn't greater than fire intensity. So let's actually calculate how much grass should die. 0.05. So fire intensity is going to be 2.6 minus grass's resistance, which is practically nothing. Divided by grass fire resistance. Okay, I can see why it wiped out all of the grass. Question now is, why wasn't the grass actually killed? We've calculated grass casualties. And it should be in scope. Yes, it's in scope. Grass casualties. So let's head down here. Oh, maybe this is it. If tile grass is less than grass casualties, set grass casualties to tile grass. That's not... So we can't have more casualties than we have grass. But... Weird. I don't understand. Okay, let's do this. Let's just see if it's being applied, which seems really stupid. But let's see if the effect is actually occurring. Okay, so here we have what looks like the fire actually killing stuff as it's supposed to. Trying to figure out our grass is misbehaving. Okay, so we had an initial super deadly fire, which did what it was supposed to do, but then the others don't. So let's find an instance of a fire up here, which was nasty. Too much water, too much water. Why are we having such a hard time finding that fire? There's plenty of fires here. Fire count not 19. I'm so confused. So here we continually have not enough. For fuck's sake. I don't understand. Where are the fires? I don't see them. It said there were fires. Oh, here we go. Okay, yeah, fire intensity. I see what the issue is. So it says at year 140 We had this many casualties, this much grass left. Fire intensity of 2.29. This seems like what we actually are supposed to get. The question is that reflective of anything that we see? Oh wait. Am I looking at the wrong? I think this is the most recent one. Here, we can find out. Yeah. So interval 140, we don't see this supposed ruinous fire. Weird. Okay, let's run this again. How many fires did it say we had? Quite a few. 20 fires. What's weird is I feel like with the grazers, they would be inhibiting. They'd be inhibiting enough in the environment that you wouldn't have. I don't know. You wouldn't have as many fires, but obviously we're still having the fires. Okay, so here we have extreme deficit of water. Why do we have 2 water per capita values? Okay, I need to clear out some of these logs. Okay. See what that does for us. Okay, 22 fires. All right, so now we only get the fire years. Firegrass casualties at intensity 1.7 is 36902. Tallgrass left is 21554. So let's check that in the data. That is not what is recorded, as you can see. What the hell is going on? Look at specifically 225. Nothing. What is going on? So we recorded the casualties. We inflicted the casualties. I guess we're just going to have to look at every single instance of Tallgrass and see. know what? Maybe there's some naming collision issues going on. Because we're using grass casualties. Okay, let's do this. Grass graze casualties. Let's just. I don't see how this could be true because. Yeah, I don't know. But we'll see. Maybe they're somehow canceling each other out, or there's some other kind of collision. Yeah, if that's retained in memory, then we could be subtracting a negative, maybe? I don't know. Let's see. We're going to run it now. No, doesn't make any difference. Now we can see the wildfires are reactivated. So there couldn't possibly be any naming collisions now. That was never the issue to begin with. That's annoying. I wonder if it's just what if it's just it could just be a recording issue. Let's see, how are we recording this? Yeah, you know what? Let's just log out grass at the end of every year. Yeah, but it's adding it in right here, so why would it? That's so weird. I mean, it's not going to be any different than what it is here, I don't believe. Yep. Question is, at what point is grass making this miraculous rebounds? Because we know we have casualties. We know the casualties have been applied. We know that we have less after those casualties are applied. Alright, so here we have a fire. Grass casualties, boom, and then pow, they immediately jump right back up to what they were before. When is the last time we calculated total biomass? I think I might know what's going on. We haven't. That is the short answer. Right, okay. Well, let's do this then. Let's recalculate total biomass. I think that was, yeah, oops. Okay, so we have grazers on. Yeah, we don't have grass casualties currently, so. Oh wait, no. We didn't have grass casualties on, and yet we do now see an effect. Right. Or okay, so we are seeing the fires now. Okay, good. We need to tune that a little bit. So yeah, now we are seeing the effect. Yeah, well, we're seeing grasses rebound as they should. You know what? And I think this should help us now too. Now that we've recalculated properly. Yes. There we go. Right. Yep. Grass is supposed to rebound almost immediately. That's what we want. In fact, we want to mitigate the death of grasses. We want them to not have much fire resistance, but we want everything below the root surface to survive. Or below the surface to survive in the root column. So we actually need to modify this slightly. So whatever the casualties are, they're cut in half. You're only killing what's on the surface. Okay, so we're interested in the long-term trend here. Okay, so we can see that we can only ever kill off about half of the grass that exists at a given moment. Alright, so we're going to need to do some rebalancing, I think. Let's go ahead and crank this up to 2,000 years and see how broadleafs do. Was this with or without grazers? I don't remember. That's with grazers, doing damage to grass. Let's see what it looks like when they're not doing damage to grass. Shouldn't make that much of a difference because the growth should rebound pretty quickly. Oh, interesting. Okay. So the grazing damage did have some influence on grass, which I guess is what we want. Which is long term, whether we really want this many trees. Still feels like the fires are doing too many casualties. Oh, I know why. Let's fix it. Right, so I think the issue is when we calculate grass casualties, right, what we should be doing is regardless of the number we end up with, what did I do wrong here? That should be fine. Why are you complaining? Okay. We just need to cut them in half. So that we'll basically be assuming that you can't do more damage than what's just above the surface. Yeah, so generally what we want, clicky poo, is when a wildfire rages through an area, grass is always the thing that rebounds super fast. It's the thing, regardless of whether you're in the taiga or in temperate forest, grasslands, and so typically there's this phenomenon where when a wildfire like rages through, you kill everything off. And it adds a whole bunch of organics to the soil, which sort of catalyzes faster growth. And then you have grasses colonize first, boom, and then you have shrubs come in after them, and then you have conifers and broadleaves come in after that. And that's sort of your basic primary succession. In this case, we actually kind of want the slightly more arid conditions of grasslands to be a check on larger forests growing. And we also want grazers to be a check on larger forests growing, because they tend to rip up saplings, and grasses should be able to rebound fairly quick from being grazed, but grasses shouldn't. Still feel like forests do too well. Wait a minute, why are we getting this again? I thought I mitigated the casualties. Grass casualties. Oh, okay, I know why. Same issue. Okay, this needs to go lower. Right, this is where it needs to go. Oops. Alright, so grasses aren't taking the casualties that they normally were, but we still have this tree abundance issue. Grasses are apparently being grazed. Grasses are rebounding like they should. That's good. Too many trees, though. I think I have an idea, though. Let's go back to our grazers here. Graze base damage. I think what we can actually do is, now that we've fixed this, we can ratchet up their damage a bit more. Curious what happens when we jack it up to 16. A little extreme, maybe? Yeah, that may be a little extreme. I'm curious, though, as we increase it. Yeah, it's like there's definitely a point where it tips over. Yeah, so it's like, I guess. Okay, that's interesting. So what we're seeing here is there's room to grow. As the grazers eat up the grass, there's now room for the grass to grow, which is what we want. Thing is, though, I feel like when grazers come through, I feel like we want them to kind of pretty much eat everything that's worth eating in a specific spot. And so it'd be nice to see like grass biomass really take a substantial hit. before the grazers move on. And right now, I think the casualties they're doing is pretty meager. Oh, I commented it out, so I can't see, but I guess we'll put it back in a little bit. Let's see how many. So we're testing this grasslands tile. Let's see how many grazers we actually put there. 70% max capacity. End up with this situation where we have what is likely an excessively stable environment. It's so weird that we tip over into it so quickly, but it's gonna. I presume it's hitting an equilibrium and then tipping over onto that equilibrium. Or it's tipping over into a new stable equilibrium. Hold on a second. Maybe here. Let's adjust the years maybe, so that we can see it in more detail. Hey, nice. How many fires do we have? I feel like not enough. May just be that this is kind of what we want. The thing that bothers me is we have 300 years of growth. And we really should have way more fires than what we have here. Might have to tune our fire model a little bit because I feel like I wonder what the range is of droughts in some cases. How? Got an idea. Okay, when we turn on fire. Water deficit severity, random uniform plus 1, 0. Okay, continue to modify fire resistance of our different trees based on canopy height. I thought I oh yeah, that's right. We modified how much water. Yeah, we had yearly deviation, significant deviation chance, right? And we had. You know, it'd be interesting if we ramped up that potential deviation. We get some more fires, which is expected. 19 fires over that length of time, though, doesn't seem like a whole lot. $19 fires over how many years? I know it's got to be more. We do already in our deserts. We have a lot more brush fires. Important role in healthy ecosystems, affecting them in two crucial ways: invasion of trees from the edges of the prairies and from windblown seeds. Yeah. Fires help to speed up default. This is too simplistic. Kind of covered everything we talked about. I need to know abundance, and I need to figure out a mechanism by oh, that's right. I remember we had some mechanism to induce microfires. Aridity modifier. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Okay, so our aridity modifier was sort of like a lower. It created a more common base chance of a fire that was less severe, depending on how arid an area is. I'm curious what I set my standard at, though. Available water. Let's actually see what happens when we right. So this looks much more like a prairie now. We have well, okay, that's slightly a problem now. Messed something up. We're getting the number of fires. 86 fires over 300 years, that seems about right. Main issue seems to be our fires are way too intense. I don't know how they ended up getting that. Oh. Okay, I have it. I have an inkling. Let's reset our water deviation. Chair squeaking, sorry. It's not the chair, it's actually my desk. That's weird. Yeah, 456 fire intensities. My intensity is getting to ludicrously high levels. See, that's weird though. Why? That is so unusual. For some reason, grass is now capping out at like 40,000. Okay, goodbye, kitty cat. Alright, why is grass capping out at 40,000? Are grazers like keeping them at a certain level on average? Maybe? Alright, TSS roll. No. Yeah, grass casualties 4,102. That's weird. Man, we just keep having all these anomalies with grass. So we have 40,000 in tile. Calculate total biomass. Okay, this is in the event of a fire, which is fine. Grass, graze, casualties. Express the casualties there. Didn't do that many casualties, so okay, here we recalculate biomass. Here we have crowding factor, which shouldn't be that big of a deal. Yeah, I see what the issue was, overcrowding. Okay. Basically, there was like this tug of war between grazing and overcrowding because, but then why would there be, why would there be overcrowding? Oh, wait. A second. Back to this again. Let's see what our grass net growth is here. Right, yeah. So grass net growth is roughly the growth of what the grazers are eating. Right, so it's setting in at an equilibrium value of like 5,000 or something. Yeah. Right, so it gets to the point where grazers are eating as much as the grass is growing. Let me see something real quick. Let me just experiment. Is it making any difference? Grass average about 5,000 in this case. Dang it. Why isn't it? Why isn't it printing? Print! That's weird. Oh, because I'm printing it down here, I think. Yeah. Let's move this up. What? No. Okay. I need to fix this documentation issue once and for all. grass added history. Okay, why would... File line 1112. Okay, let's do this. Line 112. 1112. Oh, so shrubs having issue. Okay, so we're inserting shrub growth per capita. We're ending up with index out of range because there was a period where we didn't have growth. Is that the problem? Okay. Nope, no, it still didn't fix it. 11104. Okay. For X in range 0, original growth. Right, we end up going out of range because there may not be a value there. That's annoying. Going okay. When I was populating these charts, there's some edge cases that are causing a crash. Is the issue here is added history. Some point along the way, something's getting wiped out. I don't see why we would have any issues here, though. There's always going to be a value. A value of 0 should be fine. Don't see any point where anything gets knocked down to 0, so I'm not sure why it's freaking out. Weird. Okay, so we have grass per capita history. What's going on? Okay, so we're taking the length of this array. Right, we're using that to create the CSV. Still working on the graphs. I'm tangled with an annoying little problem. Mainly with producing my CSVs that I check to, see what the history of the data looks like. Grass growth per capita history. I am at 0. I'm inserting a header. Okay. I wonder. I see. Iterations. We're taking the length. Problem is, if we end up wiping out shrub growth per capita history, if one of these ends up being smaller, then we're trying to add in an element that doesn't exist in that array. Let's do this. Let's take print grass records is going to end up equaling the length of our history. And let's print out, let's see which one is causing the malfunction here. Conifer records, broadleaf records. There we go. Now we should get the error, hopefully. Yes, there's the error. Okay, 1090. Cat, go away. Now we have an issue. Oh. I see. I had the document open, it was trying to write to it. Oh, of course, this time it finishes without any issues. Naturally. Okay, here we go. Index out of range. What? Oh. Oops. Okay, we actually have to print these out before the error occurs, otherwise we're screwed. But it happened 104, added history. Oh, this is where the issue is. So I think I actually need these arrays here. Oh, you know what? It could be the growth was so low that it didn't add a record, maybe? Let's see. Whoa, okay. Alright, so we're missing 296 records for conifers, which means they went extinct. And that was the end of that. Okay, so now we know where the issue is. Conifer added. So when we were populating, here we go. When we were generating our history, see, I thought this covered it here. We would just append the value of 0 when, oh no, but this is canopy. Here we go with our net growth. Conifer displacements. Tile conifers, where did we add the history? See, but here's the odd thing, like, we should still get a record regardless. If conifer displacement is greater than or equal to 1, we do all the usual stuff. We add conifer displacement to the history. If that's not true, though, else... Yeah, see, this is what's odd. I would expect... Oh, here it is. Here's the issue. Nothing was being added here. Boom. So I bet you this solves the issue for conifers. So we'll still have an error probably when it comes to broadleaves. Oops. Okay, somehow we got way more records. We messed it up. If conifer displacement is greater than... Oh, no, whoops, yeah. This is where we actually want it. Maintain conifer record integrity by adding 0 for this record. There. Oh, which is what we did here with shrubs, which is why we don't have an issue with shrubs. And then we want to do the same thing with broadleaves. There, now we should no longer get this error. Broadleaf added history. Moment of truth. Yay, 601, 601, 601. Good, fixed that problem. That was just like an accounting bug, more or less. Let's go ahead and clear that log out. Alright, so I feel like what we need is some random variation when it comes to grazing. Like, it's too consistent, so we have these weird equilibrium periods. I said I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to do this. We originally just had grazers. Shut up, it's dark. Just, instead of having first half here, we'll just make a random check. Okay, yeah, this is what we do. Random grazing, mind blown. Okay, apparently just moving everything over just RNG killing like okay. Oh, that's why things were a little screwy. Okay, so Grazer's on. We want that first half. You know what? Let's just leave it the way it is, and instead, we'll assume that we can always have some Grazers. I can get. Maybe what we do is we make our Grazers kind of represent the grazing intensity score that we have. We can have it kind of represent the higher bounds. Let's see. Just grab a random number generator here. Yeah, I wonder almost. I shouldn't go there right now. Like I want, eventually, you know, we want to maintain sort of like some population values for grazing herds, have them exist as units and roam around and graze and things like that. So we want to kind of replicate that without going in too deep. So how many grazers are present right now in any given moment? Grazer's presence will be our random uniform distribution, and maybe this like the ceiling that we have assigns. I think it was grazing animal intensity. Let's see. Yes, that's exactly what it was. I have no idea what this is gonna look. It's gonna. Oh, that's interesting. A little weird. I thought it was gonna be. I didn't think they would be able to maintain such tight control over trees. Let's reduce damage standard and see if our trees can bounce back. Yes, they can. Here we have a period of forestation as we reduced the intensity. I guess, That's interesting. How many fires did we have here? Only 11 fires over a fairly lengthy period of time. So we still need to sort out the fire situation. This will be part of the active simulation clicky. So as the game progresses, you'll see ecosystems adapting to the model. I mean, what's especially important is these disturbance events where you have radical changes or shifts in the environment which cause disruptions, which can either, force people to move around and cause disharmony in other lands, or disturbance could occur immediately near you and sort of disrupt natural resources. Okay, so here we have, hold on a second, aridity. What did we base our aridity on? Also, so here we have a grazing area. Temperate forest. No. Grasslands. What was our rainfall? So rainfall in July. That's technically the second half of the year. What's the humidity in July? Okay. Seems reasonable-ish. I'm surprised by I guess per capita grass growth, I'm a little surprised that it's so slow. Let's switch to a few other biomes and see what we got. Although I still feel like we need more fires in this case. But then our fire just got totally out of hand way too quickly. Maybe that's just because we set our aridity index way too high. So, right here we have some more fires. 21 fires over 300 years. That still for prairie is not common enough. It's like we need more micro fires. Resistance. Fire intensity. Let's look at thinking annual rainfall in one of the plain states. Right now this is just modeling a single tile. The way it works, Clicky, is we're modeling it in a single tile so we can run many years very quickly and get some ballpark results for what we're looking for. In the game, this is going to exist on every single tile, and then we also have we're going to sort of tie the tiles together so that they influence one another as well, which we can't represent here. And of course, in the real model, grazing animals would move around. Tiles would change. Tiles near one another would influence each other, not just by casting seeds to one another, but also by altering the general climate in the surrounding area. And so a tile full of trees is going to alter the climate favorably for any other tiles nearby. And so you get a whole bunch of tiles with trees, and then they're all kind of have this aggregate positive effect on the climate. And that goes for pretty much any growth, but especially for trees. Because Warren and I had made some kind of... I had induced some micro-fires. I don't remember how. Oh, wait a minute. This could be... Yeah, odd, because I remember I had induced additional fires. Why they are so intense right now, though, I don't really know. We have these spikes where they get extremely intense all of a sudden. What we really want is fires that are... Oh, interesting. Aridity modifier. Air conditions raise odds of a fire. That's right. That's weird. I'll have to run through the math of this again. Blew up something real good. Division by 0. Great. Okay, 7, 5, 4. Oh, if tile stroke growth is greater than 0, okay, that makes no fucking sense. I specifically checked to see if... Oh, no, if it's greater than or equal to. Right. Shrub growth per capita. Right, if it is 0, then we end up dividing shrub net growth by 0. Pretty much. It's always the freaking diagnostic variables that keep getting me. An easy way to resolve this. Tile shrubs. I have to make sure that I... Okay, so right now we have, the rainbow bomb. You remember that? The Magus world-ending calamity. So here, God damn it. God, the intensity of these fires. It doesn't make any sense though, because or does it? You know what? I think it does make sense. Maybe kind of a problem though, because basically I think the reason the fires are getting really intense now and really calm, it's still because the grass is able to rebound in its population and reach the point very quickly where it is now bumping once again into sort of dangerous fire territory. And it bounces back, but still, it still doesn't seem. It sounds crazy, but common enough. So we have 300 years. We're only having 40 fires. But I don't know. Maybe that's about right. Let's go ahead and switch to like Xeric Desert and see what we end up with. We've changed so much. I'm not sure what we're gonna have, but here, try Xeric Desert. Better yet, let's try Mediterranean. Oof. Yeah, everything just gets annihilated by the fire. I'm curious what temperate forest will look like too. Kind of interesting. The fires never get too bad. See, what's interesting about Xeric Desert is we're looking at the numbers. Should be way more shrubs. 448 fires, so we have all these micro fires, which is kind of what we want. We can see in most cases these micro fires are so small that they don't make that much of a difference. Just can't. You stop blocking my screen. I wonder if we need to reconsider how fires operate. Let's look at Sahel. Yeah, trees are consistently just getting completely and utterly annihilated. Okay, so let's put you back to the way you were. What's supposed to happen is if you induce fires more often, they shouldn't have as much fuel to burn, and so then they'll just end up being small. But then the fire occurs relatively soon afterward again because not much of the fuel has been burned up. And so in arid environments, what we should have is these more frequent fires that are not as terrible and destructive, but are in general more common. But for some reason, when we modify our aridity modifier, it's destroying everything. It's just making fires way more common, way more destructive, and it's not what we want. So we put it back to normal, and our Sahel is looking more like the way a Sahel is supposed to look, I guess. Still some pretty intense fires. Wait, no, where are we? We are in the Sahel. Yeah. Let's check there. Desert. So we have 73 fires. That seems about right, actually. 73 fires, 700 years? Yeah, sure. Here we have Xeric Desert. Mix of grass and shrubs. That's about right. We have 379 fire intensity. See, you can see in the logs that most of the fires are below 1, right? So that seems about right. Yeah, it's inferred King's Rook, but yeah, we can't track specific species, so it's, in specific places, because this is how we're determining the biomes to begin with. I do feel like maybe, hey, where's our average total intensity? Did we disable it or something? How fast is our grass growing here anyway? Great vegetation average. Did I disable it? No, here it is. So why aren't we getting our averages down here? We have all of our fire intensity stuff. What the? Weird. Why aren't we getting this? Okay, so we printed out fire. Oh, shoot. Yeah, because it doesn't exist yet. Still nothing. What the fuck, dude? Grass average. It's right here. Calculating it right now, right here. What is the big deal? Print. Stuff and things. Are we just not printing anything out? No. What? Oh no, I see. Yeah, we're printing it ahead of time. Okay, we need to do it after we print out all our fire stuff because it's... There we go, stuff and things. Okay, so in this Xeric Desert, we have average land cover of about half. That seems about right, actually. That's good. So that's what we actually want in a Xeric Desert. We only have half land cover. Sort of, you can see the shrubs are more adaptable to all of the fires. Grasses are kind of gyrating all over the place. So that's good. But what we want is... We'll check our Sahel. Alright, we have periods of trees, which is good, which is what we want. So a mix of grassland trees. Mediterranean. Oops. Let's just close this and try again. Yeah, we have nice trees that we do have are stunty. We have some trees, shrubs, and grasses. That seems about right for a Mediterranean setting. Temperate forests. Seems about right. But Mediterranean, how many fires did we have? It's the grassland that's going to kill us, though. We're not going to get the right stuff for grassland. Total intensity of fire is 133. Oh, that's interesting. That's good. 77 fires over 300 years. That seems about right. They're a little more intense. I think that's pretty good. Now, the big question... Oh, let's check Tega. It's just a side note. Seems about right. Not a lot of fire intensity. Here's the trick, grasslands. Oh, right, because we have our grazers. Interesting. I mean, that's the thing, Clicky, is the reason we're aiming for the results we're getting is because of the research that we've done. We have piles and piles of climate maps and soil maps and biome maps, and so, I mean, but it's so much more complex than just climate, though, too. Because you can have a climate that's fairly wet with extremely unfavorable soils in which you get desert-like conditions, even though you have a decent amount of rainfall. Or conversely, you can have an area with pretty favorable soils, which are very good at, they're not excessively drained and they're not excessively compacted, so they can retain moisture pretty well, and you can actually end up with forests in places that would be more arid. It depends on the soil subsidies. You can have alluvial soils. You can have glacially refreshed soils. You have volcanic soils with that are silty with volcanic ash. Okay, so I think we're pretty good here. Our grasslands, because I guess we had a lot of grazing intensity, that sort of trimmed back the trees, and as we relieve the grazing intensity, we start to get our animals back. Here we see some significant fires killing off mostly the trees, but also briefly the grass. Let's see if we trim back to 50, we probably will end up with Sahel-like conditions. Yeah, so for instance, actually, Clicky, let's take a look right now. Okay, so as we peel back our animals, we get, this forest has a chance to colonize. So let's do this. Let's put our grazers back to 80. Let's go to a temperate forest. So this is just purely an experiment, right? Let's see what our temperate forest looks like in the current conditions. We can see we have decent rainfall, favorable humidity, good mineral nutrients, good permeability, not many grazers. Let's see what we end up with. So most of the time, tree dominant. Periods of higher grass when we have fires. Let's see what happens when we make the soil really shitty. So really sandy soil. No forest. Same climate, same temperature, same humidity, same rainfall. But soil is only 3/5 as good when it comes to retaining water, and we end up with basically a grassland. And maybe we can tick it up a little. What was it originally? 65? So it was actually radically worse. Let's make it just somewhat worse. So we do have some trees, but now it's grass dominant. So now it looks more like a savanna, right? Or a Sahel type of environment where we have, trees interspersed around and grasses, little stands of trees. Yeah, and what's going to be cool is to see how this all comes together in the, once we apply it globally to tiles, because we're going to be able to see how landscapes change over time. In most strategy games, it's like, oh, this tile is such and such. This tile is, and it just stays that way forever. But as the game progresses, you're going to constantly see the landscape changing. And the hope is that with anthropomorphic influences, you'll actually see permanent change to the environment. So you come in, you could theoretically have a tile with a forest in it, with a stable state of a forest with occasional wildfires. But then once you start chopping down trees, it changes the climate, and then you end up having, for instance, so actually let's do a hypothetical, right? Let's put the soil back to the way it was. Let's say we're not eroding the soil, but let's say we have theoretically a grassland. Let's say there aren't as many grazers. Let's see what that makes things appear. Okay, so I still have temperate forest. I was wondering. I'm like, that doesn't look right. So let's put in grasslands. Excessive amounts of cow farts. Yeah, we're going to be modeling in the cow farts. So you have sort of a low grade forest here, right? Let's say you come in, and let's say you kill off most of the grazing animals, and then you chop down the trees, which results in a local change of climate, right? So, and we can say that alters rainfall. Not a lot, right? You can see we're only altering it by a percentage, where previously we had roughly half forest cover. Boom. Because of anthropomorphic influences, you've basically turned the landscape into a desert, basically. You don't even have 100% land cover anymore. And then let's say you actually start overgrazing the landscape too with your goats and your cows and stuff like that. So that further alters the landscape. So you get even less evapotranspiration, more grazing. Now you've turned the land into, let's see, an even more severe desert. So now we have even less land cover. I am kind of interested if we, let's try something. Graze. I feel like we can allow grazers to do the necessary damage that we want them to grasses. Of course, one thing that isn't captured right now is exhaustion of organics. So if you had some forests whose growth was contingent on sort of like a bank of organic matter being built up in the soil over a long period of time. And then you chop down all the trees, and then you start farming there, and you till the soil, which causes aerobic bacteria to go haywire and consume all the organics over time. Then the forest just isn't going to come back, period, until you've started to slowly replenish that bank of organic matter. Let me actually put these variables back to the way they were. Okay. I do want to see something down here. What if we just let the grazers go wild on grass? Well, this is a temperate forest. Nothing's going to happen there. Hold on. Interesting. We have a period of forestation. What I'm kind of interested in is I was wondering, like, okay, how much are grazers really going to constrain growth here? What is our growth per capita? I'm actually wondering. Okay, growth per capita is quite high for grass, which is what we want. So, in each case, each individual is yeah, but then we don't have that fire intensity. So we had actually randomized grazing from year to year. So let me look at land cover average here. 20250. One of the issues, I think, one of the phenomenon that's occurring here is 6435. Normally what we would have here is the fires would end up raging through here and killing off the trees more often. In addition to the grazers sort of ripping up the saplings. But what an interesting side effect of the grazers is that they're controlling the abundance of plants in the tile enough that they're preventing fires from happening. Because there's less demands for water from the soil. And so the plants are staying better hydrated because the grazers are so intense that, that they're causing 1/3 of the land to not reach its growth potential. basically we allowed we allowed the grazers to really tear up the grass. So I'm wondering if see, I don't. I'm a little bit reserved about cranking up growth too much for grasses. Maybe we do. Maybe we just need grasses and shrubs to really grow much faster than trees. See, so for instance, now we can see, let's look at the average land cover now. 31085. So now we have more shrubs. Very few conifers, but okay, so we have more land cover. See, I'm curious now, what's going to happen if we actually ease up on grazing in this tile? Will the additional fires, whoops, so it was at 80, we're going to reduce to 50. Curious if the additional fires are going to be worse for the trees. No. We do have a lot more land cover. What's our per capita growth right here? See, here's the thing, like, we want grasses to be faster growers. Significantly faster growers than any of the other vegetation types. And we're like cranking their growth through the roof, but it's not really making that much of a difference. Oh, part of the issue is just when fires strike, they're knocking the density of the grass down quite a bit, but that's not going to influence the per capita growth. Alright, so here we now have higher per capita growth. Most of the time, trees aren't getting above 100,000s. Grasses are 4 times more common. I think this could be okay. Fire intensity is 30. That seems reasonable. 18 fires, though, on a prairie does not seem sufficient. What's the average canopy height here? I'm curious. Yeah, so here's, I think, part of the problem. The canopy is getting pretty high. But that's because the trees are getting fairly dense. alterations are doing to other ecosystems. Mediterranean looks pretty good. So lots of fire intensity, that's technically what we want. Xeric deserts, let's see how Xeric deserts are. Low canopy, mix of grass and shrubs. Average land cover is in the 35-ish. Seems about right. Sahel. This is our savannas south of the Sahara. Yeah, mix of trees, shrubs, grasses seems reasonable. Fire intensity, fairly high, that's also good. Here's Ortega. Conifer dominated, some grasses, some shrubs. Very few fires, but I guess that's acceptable, right? This is the only one that bugs me because it feels like, oh, interesting, this town we have no trees. Feels like we need a greater frequency of fire. Let's do this. Let's see if we can modify our aridity factor again. By just a little. Now that our grazers are wiping out grasses. Okay, more intensity, more fires, I think. Trees try to rebound frequently, but oh, that's weird. We have a higher baseline of shrubs here. This seems betterish to me. Yeah, still grassland. Okay, grass dominated. Let's see what happens when we relieve this tile of its grazers. Interesting. Let's get rid of almost all the grazers. Now we have a forest back. Although, interestingly, fires get bad. Really bad. Alright, well, I'm going to get some coffee, take a brief break, so I'm going to go on an intermission. And then I will be back. Let's see. What were we working on? We were doing a whole bunch of tuning. What's our grass per capita growth rate? I'm kind of curious. Curious how quickly our grass rebounds in these grasslands after a major fire. Trying to anticipate in the future. Let's see, pop history. It fell over into a swamp. Sum this real quick. Like the number of grazers needs to be the number of grazers that can be supported in an area needs to be related to growth rate per square unit land. All right, so here we have a fire. Let's see. Let's find a nasty fire. All right, so here seems to be a really nasty series of fires. Why is it so hard for... Oh, I see. Interesting. So here we see grass starting to rebound. Boom, another fire. It's rebounding again. Boom, another fire. But we don't necessarily know. Problem is now we, our grazers are... Yeah, problem is our grazers can visit at sporadic intervals now. Let me see something. Let's take grazers out of the picture for now. Grazers false. Let's close this down. We'll do another summation, and then we'll see how quickly grasses rebound after a fire. Oh, hey tree. Yeah, working on let's see, our growth per capita is so low over here, but that just may be that. Yeah, okay, so here's ooh. Okay, so we still have fires. Let's do this. Open up the file. Yeah, right now, what all those lines that you were seeing was sort of all the different vegetation types as they change over time in a tile, based on different influences from wildfires to grazers to wind events that blow trees over, that kind of stuff. So let's use our auto sum again. Theoretically, we could just calculate this in Python. So without the influence of grazers, I know we can do that to help elucidate here. Maybe we do need to keep track of grazer population. Yeah, I think maybe we need to do that to get some insight. So here we can see we have significant wildfire, and then we have our grass rebounding. You can see that on in the cold months there's not nearly as much growth, and then you have, boom, a burst of growth. And apparently we had another fire. Goodness. Now we go for a while without a fire. So maybe what we need to do is keep track of those. It's so hard though, because you need almost like a patch ecology model. Because the grazers aren't just going to be parked. What do we do here? Let's re-enable grazers. Maybe we need to keep track of. Okay, I know what we need to do. We need to run some numbers on the average growth of grass with grazers enabled to see how much the grazers are eating. It's hard. Okay, nice stunty canopy. Here's our per capita growth of grasses. Little spikes of forest from time to time, which is fine. Oh no, what the hell, dude? What is this? Oh no, we're fine. Okay, we just had this file open, so it was freaking out. Alright, so this is how much we had in tile on average at any given moment. Presumably it's being trimmed back a lot by the grazers. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and run it again. So two things we're interested in. I mean, growth rate, not really important. It's really the per capita growth rate we're interested in. I think. do this. Let's just keep track of how much grass is actually being eaten by grazers. What I'd like to do is then compare this in different ecosystems to see sort of get a rough idea of what the carrying capacity is going to be like in different circumstances. Years of growth. Hold on, is that original growth? Grass eaten average. Let's go ahead and print this out now. There. So, grass eaten average of our grasslands is, I don't see it. Uh-oh. Is that going to be before we actually printed any of our, yeah, grass eaten average. Holy smokes, that's a lot of grass. Alright, so first thing we need to do is we need to print this out later so that we can broadly canopy average. Right, we can just do it down here. Okay, try it again. Alright, so we have nice stunty canopy. Okay, grass eaten average is roughly the same, it looks like. Yep, roughly the same again. So now, I don't know what kind of results I'm expecting here. Let me go ahead and keep track of things. So grasslands, we have 1, 0, let's go with the original result, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0. Okay, so 11,000s. Let's change biomes now. Let's change conditions. So let's go with extreme xeric desert. But let's also make sure we have the same amount of grazing. So we can assume, like, let's say the grazers are just like hanging out there. For some reason they don't die, their population doesn't change. Obviously normally it should, but how much would they be able to extract from the lands? So what we're doing is kind of we're determining how fast the grass is growing, which determines how many grazing animals you can probably have there as a resource. Right? See, that's a lot of grass eaten now. Jeez. This is a xeric desert. And we have nearly the same amount of grass, which is a problem, kind of. I mean, grazers do exist in like desert scrub. Not that much though. I feel like, what's the per capita growth rate of grass here? It's really high. See, oh. Well, first off, let's assume we don't have any extra water in there from water movement. I'm not sure why that's there. Let's just, yeah, that's, now we have even more grass eaten. Going on, I wonder. Well, let's just look at some other environments as well. I mean, the effect is there. Less grass is being eaten because there is fewer resources to grow off of. No, something's off though. I think part of it is related to relief from crowding. I almost wonder if we need to like really relax our crowding standards now that we have all of these other conditions. Let's just see what our Mediterranean environment looks like real quick. Ew. What the? Oh. The problem is I did not modify my grazing. Let's see, Mediterranean. So obviously we had way less eaten. Okay, so this is unfortunate. In our Mediterranean setting, we have nearly as much, functionally the same amount of grazing of grass. That's kind of a problem. Yeah, our model has got some issues to work out, unfortunately, still. I think so here's the thing. We go to our grasslands and we can see we have rainfall 39, 29, which is relatively dry. The Xeric Desert has rainfall of 12 and 15. What I feel like is there needs to be like some I don't know, some kind of growth dampening effects related to just not much water being around. Oh, can you hear me now? A microphone. A lot, but I apologize. Okay, you can probably hear me better now. So, long story short, our grasses are growing too quickly in the places that shouldn't have grasses growing too quickly. But part of the issue is we don't have organics yet. We have some problems as it relates to how moisture is being used, though, I think. We may need to start printing out our growth factors. Right, because, so here we had Xeric Desert. Let's go back to Xeric Desert. Per capita growth. Okay, we got the average of grass eaten. That's because the grass average was 2,300. Yeah. There were 23,000. Do a little bit of thinking. CO2, grass nutrient, grass crowding, total biomass. We significantly released grass from crowding. Where do you get used? Grass crowding factor. You should get used. Yeah, right here. Global growth standard, grass niche saturation, grass base growth. You know, niche saturation could be an issue here. I feel like maybe we need to invert this rather than making it an inhibitor. We should bump up the growth of yeah, you know what? That could definitely be a problem. That was pretty lazy on my part. All right. Niche. We should turn niche saturation on its head. We can assume there are areas within a tile which are marginally more favorable for a given plant type. So the smaller a given, so the smaller the presence of a given vegetation type, the more we can assume it has marginally higher growth. We can remove this effect once we get around to something like 25% prevalence in ecosystem. Sure. Let's keep what we have here just for safety. And well, we just need to make it. Can we do this without making checks? Just have a formula. So we have trying to figure out just what's going to be more CPU cycle efficient. No, I don't see how we get around making a check. So we do this. If tall grass is less than 1500, oops. Currently in Python, but the main model is in C#. Long story as to why I'm doing it in Python. I had to learn PySpark for work. Too long didn't read version. Had to learn PySpark for work, so I went ahead and wrote this particular component of the model in Python. It's eventually going to get ported to C# though, because that's what the rest of the game is in. No. Are you new here, Sinister? Do you want to see the game itself? I can rev it up real quick. Let's see, where's... Alright, let me yank a recent build here. Okay, this is probably the best one. So right now we have a complex world generator. You can alter tectonic activity, hotspots, climate variables, ice age variables, all kinds of stuff. And then it spits out a complex world. It'll take a little while to generate, but... So far we've done... what we do is we create a 2 million hex world, or 2 million tile world that we basically generate the tectonic plates, figure out what their trajectory is, slam them together. It creates all of your terrain as a result. Then we put a climate model on top of it, influenced by terrain as well, and so then you get your rainfall and erosion patterns, which determine sort of where your river valleys get cut and things like that. Then we create water bodies with all kinds of different variables. We create soil conditions. And now we're layering on vegetation, and I'm building. Yeah, so right now I was building the vegetation model in just a little Python environment so that we could run it really quickly on one tile to get the basics of the model down before we applied it to 2 million tiles. Because you can imagine that if we were trying to generate a long history of vegetation, you know, if we were making the model while trying to run all of this, it would end up, we'd be waiting around for two or 3 minutes between tests. And so instead, each test, you know, we can tune one variable without having to wait on it. Yeah, exactly. You know, you can see the various things occurring in the world, generating vegetation, but that vegetation model is not complete. It should be finished in a second. Alright, and here you can see a world. All of the ice ages are simulated too. You can see how isostatic compression has influenced landforms. And you can see where all the river valleys are. You can see here is actually an elevation map mode. And you can see how historic erosion patterns have resulted in various rivers and things like that. And what's cool is that also we're able to calculate the mineral richness of the soil based on all kinds of different conditions. And so, so for instance, here's a farming favorability map mode. As you can see over here, we have a bunch of volcanic hotspots. As a result, you have nice volcanic soils in this area, making it good for agriculture. This is all randomly generated. Yeah, each time you run the model, it'll generate a new world based on the parameters that you set. You can see you have alluvial soils all up and down these rivers. So when the rivers flood, they deposit a bunch of silts. Right, and so you can see here you have like a Mesopotamia type situation where you have rivers running through deserts and creating rich alluvial soils. Yeah, so that's the general idea. Yeah, and so what will be fun is that, you know, where civilizations will arise will depend a lot on these underlying factors. And so you can almost imagine, like, you can see there's decent farming favorability on this little plateau kind of area. And so you can imagine where you'd have more farmsteads in this kind of area than where you would have out in places like this. So you can see up in this mountain the land isn't very favorable for farming, so you'd probably just really have wild people up there. Whereas in areas like this, you have a little spot where you could anticipate where you'd have your civilizations really do well. And of course, in your river valleys, up in mountains, you know, along those little rivers, you have nice little coastal areas. Probably because the climate is probably more favorable on the coast too. Yeah. This is the Köppen climate map. Shows you where rainfall is. You can see you have little sky islands, little temperate bands up in the mountains, kind of like the highlands of New Guinea. Yeah. And so you can see you have this little, because you have mountains here, you actually you have a rain shadow being cast, and you can see how that you know, if we were to get our, yeah, you can see with farming favorability, you get more rainfall along here, so you have better farming than you have inland. Oh, and then you have, we simulate temperate, although in this case, let's see, annual farming favorability. No, actually, never mind. Yeah, we don't. So in the real world, the ice ages raked up a bunch of a bunch of bedrock material. Here's all the bedrock material here: sandstone, siltstone, volcanic material. In our world, a bunch of mountainous material was ground into silt and spewed all across the temperate climates, creating fertile soils. This world doesn't seem to really have that, though, in much abundance. Part of the reason, I think, being that you don't really have... The glaciers are sitting on top of... The ice caps are sitting on top of, like, sandstone, so it doesn't seem to really be giving us much nice material. Let's see. You see we have a little bit of silt deposit over here, which improves the farming favorability, and we have some here, too, it looks like, what was deposited. Southern hemisphere, on the other hand, yeah, nice. So you can see how this whole area was isostatically compressed by the last ice age. Let's see if we actually have that map. Yeah, so all this area used to be glaciers during the last ice age. Holy crap. You can see how it was all enriched by all of that silt that was deposited. And so if you were to found a civilization here, it would, this is almost like a China type situation where you have a lot of really great soil material. And funny enough, you go to the, interestingly, oh wow, this is fascinating. What's going on here? There must be some really high elevation under there, some mountains or something. Yeah, so the glaciers were allowed to advance way far out. Yeah, so these are giant mountains. So that's really cool. So you basically had a giant ice sheet here because you have basically a Himalayan mountain range that's relatively close to the South Pole. And so you have this giant ice sheet. That's cool. And then you have this temperate band in here, and it's kind of interesting. Yeah, it's really fun looking at all of the situations that arise. Yeah, we'll look at soil texture too. Yeah, so this whole area is super silty. You can look at the soil depth too, which means that you have basically very deep soils that you can't erode. One of the gameplay mechanics is going to be that when you farm an area too long, you erode away its soils, and it could become unfarmable until the soil rebuilds. And this is just one giant loessy area. You have like a Great Lake situation too. That's pretty cool. Yeah, thanks, man. What's neat is each of these rivers also, all of these water bodies have characteristics. Oops. Alright, so they have sediment load, they have mineral richness, organic load, how much water passes through them, how navigable they are. And so some rivers you can send a boat up and you can have commerce on it. Other rivers you can't because they're too fast or too dangerous. And so we keep track of all of those variables too. So for instance, actually, yeah, here's our water movement map mode. You can see where all the water tends to flow based on rainfall patterns. And let's see if, here's our tectonic plates, by the way. Volcanism, all of our volcanoes. What was I looking for? I was looking for drainage basins, right? So you can actually see how all of the water bodies are connected too. So everything that's orange here is connected, right? All of these rivers and tributaries ultimately flow through this tributary right here. And this tributary will contain all of the characteristics of all of the stuff that came before it, right? If that's the right one. I think that's the right, yeah, that's the right one. And you can see all these water bodies flow into this lake, which then, they drain through over to here. So anyway, I got a little bit off the beaten track. I figured I'd show you everything. Although it's kind of odd. Oh, there we go. There's the right data. You just have to re-click, right? Okay, so let me go ahead and get back to my previous model. Now that I've shown everything off. Subscribe, come back. Be a part of the community whenever you'd like. Okay, so now we wanted to have our niche factor. Question is how high we want to raise the ceiling. I think 25% is reasonable. Yeah, and play God, add humans, different organisms. We want to have a God mode eventually. You know, we got to get the sim running with. We need to make the world alive. That's really what we're doing right now as we speak. So what we're doing right now is creating, ecosystems and like grazing animals and stuff like that. And then we'll be layering on kind of, initially tribes, simplistic tribes that are hunters and gatherers, and then eventually we'll be layering on, more civilized, settled people. The idea is the game itself as a strategy game goes on indefinitely. It never ends. And every once in a while things happen in the world that'll knock civilizations back and knowledge will be forgotten and things like that. So the idea is you can play the game at your own pace and not have to worry about racing towards some finish line. Sort of a strategy game sandbox is the idea. So grass niche saturation. This is going to give us some value between 0 and 1. And that should plug into, we basically want that to be a multiplier. Are you upset? Tallgrass is a thing. We're going to want that to grass. Let's say we had 5,000. So in that case, we're going to want 2/3 of the maximum niche subsidy. So how much do we want that subsidy to exist? We use C with the original build of the game. C++ is a harder language to learn initially, but it's a good language to start if you plan long term to be a programmer, because if you start on something with Python, it'll give you all kinds of terrible habits, even though it's really easy to learn on. Because Python has no primitive types or anything like that. It does a lot of stuff behind the scenes that you should sort of understand better so that you can write code that's more performant. The best tips I have to someone who's a new programmer is, Java is a very good language to learn, very similar to C# too. The best tip I can give you is to look for projects. If you're trying to learn, look for projects that are fun. Like, create something that's interesting that's going to get you to want to come back and learn new things to achieve the goal that you're aiming for. If you have to whip yourself to learn the program, then you're probably not going to learn the program. I know, because I tried to learn since I was like 15 to 30 years old, and I couldn't do it because I just couldn't find something that was interesting. And so I took it up kind of later in life once I started modding video games. Sure. Anytime you have any questions, let us know. What am I trying to do here? Okay. So we're going to make this a multiplier. Okay, that'll be our grass niche saturation. Should work. How will you avoid AI being shit like in Paradox games? So there's a couple of things. One of the ways is because so much of the game is going to rely on the simulation, there's less that the player actually controls, and so there's a bit of a sort of an evening out effect there, because certain things will be automated for both of you in regards to agents operating in your society, and so it gives sort of less leverage for the AI to fail spectacularly relative to the player. But I mean, it's we're gonna try and create a way to make the AI's behavior more accountable and keep track of the decisions that they're making. It's funny, being in big data, like with my day job, has given me so many great ideas when it comes to applications and songs of the Eons, especially when it comes to like the possibility of storing AI decisions in a database and then running some models and metrics to see what succeeded and what has failed. That's all so far off in the future, though, that it's something I don't really want to like get into promising. So let's go ahead and niche advantage, added growth baseline. Let's come up with a value that we can just tune from one place. I'm looking forward to programming AI. I did a little bit of it with like Mayo and taxes and stuff like that, but shrubs never really got that much of a chance. Oops. Shrub niche saturation. Broadleaf niche saturation. No, I'm stupid. Tile shrubs. Tile conifers. Tile broadleaf. Tile broadleaf. Alright, so let's see what this does for us. Oh, we need to apply it, actually. So this is effectively going to be a multiplier. So let's do some hypotheticals. Yeah, the extent of the technological, I guess, yeah, okay. King's Rook's got it. Okay, so let's say we had 5,000 grass. It's pretty marginal. It's relatively marginal. We want 1500, so we're going to 0.666 times our baseline 0.5. So we're going to have a 33% boost to growth. I think that's good. Yeah, okay. So here we apply it. Yeah, net growth. Question though is conquer displacement. Conifer niche saturation. That should work. Alright, let's see what happens. Something is off. Where is it? I can't tell. What environment are we in? I don't even know. How many years did this? Okay. First off, only 300 years of growth. What environment are we in? Oh, Xeric Desert. Okay, so we have a bitch load of fires. Let's try grassland again. Uh-oh. 7, 5, 8. Oh. Grass niche saturation not defined. That's probably because, right, we need to declare it ahead of time. Because it may not be declared if we don't have the right quantity. So it is at least 1. That way I can just plug directly into the formulas. Try now. Yeah, something is odd here. Whoa! No, what is going on? This is not necessarily strange because we have a lot of fires. A lot of fires over 300 years, so that's acceptable. Jesus Christ, we have niche added growth baseline. That should be fine. Alright, so let's say, I think I know what's going on. Let's say we have 14,000. So the value is 1,000. Times our niche saturation, 0.5. Oh. Yeah, that's... No, we should be good. Come on. $14,000 divided by 15,000. That's 1. 0.666. 0.066 times niche saturation, which should be 0.5 plus 1. So we have just a minuscule multiplier if we have 14,000 grass, which should have a very minimal effect on our growth. let's look at the inverse. Let's say we only have 1,000. Yeah, then we only have an added growth factor of 1.46. So that should not be creating the bonkers values that we're seeing here. So here we have the niche saturation, conifer displacement. How odd. Okay, let's see. What is going on? Documents. Something weird is going on with this mucked up our trees somehow. Saturation. I don't know what it was. Let's try this. See if this has anything to do with it. Oops. Oh. That might have something to do with it. I set conifers and broadleaves to 0. Okay. That was silly. How pleasantly surprising. So, yeah, how nice. I like it. Basically, yeah, our little niche method gave the bump that we needed. That should be a nice little thing we can tune. We now have 45 fires, which is good. Good, so that revision to the niche, ecological niche section, I think really helped us. Let's go ahead and change up some of our ecosystems here and see what we get. So we're on grasslands at the moment. Let's check Sahel. Grass is reliably higher growth per capita. That's good. Here in our Sahel, yeah, we have shrubs and broadleaves mixed in. This is all going to be contingent on fire, so that's And then grass-eaten average. I think we had, yeah. It's not really relevant right now. Here's our xeric desert. Yeah. Way too much grass. Not enough shrubs. We'll have to sort that out. Mediterranean. Interesting. I think we need our desiccation factor with grasses again. Problem is, the desiccation factor really creates a situation where you may never get to many wildfires because the growth never gets significant enough. We'll have to figure that out when we get there. Temperate forests. Yikes. Catastrophic fire. Conifers just did not survive at all. Other than shrubs. So basically, broadleaves are just completely outcompeting conifers in this situation. Boreal forest. Alright, well I'm going to call the stream for now, and I will continue working on it. But yeah, I'll probably stream again tomorrow. See you guys later.